The world is watching the growing crisis in Iran with deep concern. From major capitals to small towns, people everywhere are glued to their screens, anxious for updates and hoping for stability in a region that has seen so much turmoil. Tensions have reached new heights as violence and political threats swirl in the region. The presence of armed forces on the streets and the uncertainty in the air have left many citizens feeling unsafe and on edge. News headlines speak of rising dangers, and many worry about what comes next. Every hour brings new reports, fueling speculation and fear about the future. Iran's war zone is not just a problem for local people, but for everyone. The impact of this conflict ripples far beyond its borders, touching lives across continents. The conflict began with long-running disputes between Iran and several other countries. Years of unresolved issues, failed negotiations, and shifting alliances have all contributed to the current crisis. Deep mistrust, past attacks, and a changing political climate have made things worse. Old wounds have reopened, and new grievances have emerged, making compromise seem more distant than ever. Recent events have turned the area into a hotspot for global security fears. The movement of troops and the buildup of military hardware have raised alarms among neighboring countries and the international community. Many fear the fighting could spill across borders and drag in more nations. The risk of a wider regional war is real, and the humanitarian consequences could be devastating, with thousands potentially forced to flee their homes. Global powers have quickly taken notice, emergency meetings are being held, and leaders are urgently discussing possible responses. The United States, China, Russia, and European countries have all made statements or taken action. Diplomatic channels are buzzing as each nation weighs its interests and the risks of escalation. This attention shows how important the region is to the entire world. The Persian Gulf is a vital artery for global energy supplies, and any disruption here can send shockwaves through international markets and economies. The stakes are high, and decisions made here can affect millions far beyond Iran. From energy prices to refugee flows, the consequences of this conflict are truly global. Each day, new developments change the situation. Journalists and analysts scramble to keep up as the story evolves hour by hour. Military strikes, protests, and international warnings fill the news. The world holds its breath, hoping that cooler heads will prevail before the situation spirals further out of control. People everywhere are asking, will this lead to a wider war, or can peace still be found? As uncertainty grows, the hope for dialogue and a peaceful resolution remains more important than ever. Iran's leaders say they are acting to protect their country, insisting that every move they make is about defending their people and their sovereignty. Tehran has launched military strikes and issued stern warnings to its rivals, making it clear that any interference will not be tolerated. These actions are not random or impulsive decisions. Instead, they are part of a calculated strategy shaped by years of tension and perceived threats. Iran says it is responding to what it sees as growing dangers. Foreign forces stationed nearby, and repeated attacks on its allies across the region. For decades, Iran has felt surrounded by enemies, with hostile neighbors and powerful adversaries on nearly every border. U.S. troops are based just across Iran's borders, and American military power in the region is a constant source of anxiety for Tehran. Regional rivals like Saudi Arabia and Israel also worry Iran, as both countries have strong militaries and close ties to the West. Recent attacks against Iranian interests, whether on its nuclear facilities or its allies, have made Tehran even more defensive and determined to show it won't back down. Leaders in Tehran believe they must show strength at every opportunity, fearing that any sign of weakness could invite further attacks or even invasion. Iran's government says its actions are meant to send a clear message to both its enemies and the world. Iran will defend itself no matter the cost. Any attack on Iran or its friends, officials warn, will be met with a strong and immediate response aiming to deter future aggression. Tehran hopes this warning will make others think twice before starting new fights, believing that strong deterrence is the best way to keep the peace. Still, these moves have made the region even more tense, with many fearing that a single miscalculation could spark a wider conflict. Many outside Iran see these strikes as dangerous provocations, raising alarms about the risk of escalation and instability. They worry Tehran's actions might lead to an even bigger war, drawing in more countries and causing even greater suffering. Yet inside Iran, many people support their government's tough stance, believing that by standing up to outside pressure, they are defending the nation's survival and dignity. The United States has a big presence in the Middle East. American troops, bases and ships are spread across the region, The U.S. says it is there to protect its own interests and keep the peace. But in the current crisis, America faces new dangers and tough choices. Recent Iranian actions have put U.S. forces and allies at risk. American bases have been targeted by missiles and drones. Each attack raises fears of a larger conflict. U.S. leaders have warned Iran to stop, but they also know that striking back too hard could start a war. Washington faces a complex situation. The U.S. wants to keep its soldiers safe, support its allies, and avoid a wider fight. Yet doing all three at once is not easy. Some American politicians call for strong action, while others urge caution and diplomacy. This uncertainty makes it hard for the U.S. to plan its next steps. Every move in the region could have big consequences, not just for American troops, but for people all over the world. China is now stepping into the crisis with a message of calm. Chinese leaders have called for all sides to stop fighting and return to talks. They say that war will only bring more suffering and chaos. China wants to be seen as a peacemaker and a friend to all countries in the region. Beijing has important reasons for getting involved. China gets much of its oil from the Middle East. A bigger war could hurt its economy and energy supply. By urging restraint, China hopes to keep the region stable and protect its own interests. Chinese diplomats have offered to help mediate between Iran, the U.S., and others. They suggest meetings and dialogue instead of more fighting. Some countries welcome China's offer, while others wonder if Beijing just wants more power in global affairs. So far, China's calls for peace have not stopped the violence, but as a major world power, its voice matters. How Beijing acts in the coming weeks could shape the future of the region. The Iran conflict has really shaken neighboring countries, sending shockwaves throughout the region and leaving many people on edge. Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and others are definitely feeling the heat, as the threat of violence spilling over their borders grows more real every day. Borders are tense, with armed guards on high alert, and leaders are worried that violence could spread into their own lands, destabilizing their fragile security. Some countries have even moved soldiers and military equipment closer to troubled areas, just in case the conflict escalates or spills over. Regional governments are split on which side to support, leading to heated debates and uncertainty about the best path forward. Some have deep historical and economic ties with Iran, while others rely heavily on the United States for security and support, making alliances complicated. This division, honestly, makes it tough for countries to work together for peace, as mistrust and competing interests get in the way of real solutions. Old rivalries and new fears are making the situation even more unstable, with protests erupting and memories of past conflicts resurfacing. Ordinary people, though, are suffering the most, caught in the crossfire and forced to make impossible choices for their safety. Many families have fled their homes to escape the fighting, leaving behind everything they know in search of safety and shelter. Businesses have closed and daily life has become really uncertain, with people struggling to find work, food, and basic necessities. In some areas, schools and hospitals have been damaged or even shut down, making it hard for children to learn and for the sick to get care. Aid groups warn that more people could be forced to leave if the violence grows, and they're already stretched thin trying to help those in need. They're calling for urgent help for refugees and those trapped in war zones, urging the international community to step up support and resources. The crisis isn't just a problem for politicians, but for millions of real people, families, children, and the elderly, whose lives have been turned upside down by conflict and uncertainty. As the crisis deepens, world leaders are working hard to find a solution. The United Nations has called for an immediate ceasefire. European countries have offered to host peace talks and send envoys to the region. Diplomats are busy shuttling between capitals, searching for common ground. The United States and Iran have not spoken directly, but use back channels to send messages. China and Russia are also involved, each pushing their own ideas for peace. Some leaders hope that a broad group of countries can help broker a deal. So far, real progress has been slow. Deep mistrust remains between the main sides. Every new attack or angry statement makes talks harder. Still, many believe that dialogue is the only way to prevent a bigger disaster. Diplomats stress that time is running out. They warn that failure to act could lead to a wider war with even more suffering. The world is watching to see if leaders can rise to the challenge. The conflict in Iran is shaking the world economy. Oil prices have jumped as traders fear that supplies from the region could be cut off. If fighting spreads, it could block key shipping lanes and make fuel more expensive everywhere. Higher oil prices can hurt families and businesses far from the war zone. When gas and energy costs rise, everything from food to travel becomes more expensive. Countries that depend on oil imports are especially worried. Sanctions and trade limits are also taking a toll. Some companies have stopped doing business in the region. Global markets are jittery, and investors are moving money to safer places. This uncertainty makes it hard for businesses to plan for the future. Leaders know that if the conflict grows, the economic pain could get much worse. They hope peace can be restored before the damage spreads any further. Behind the headlines, millions of people are living in fear. In cities and villages near the fighting, families worry about their safety every day. Schools sometimes close without warning. Hospitals struggle to treat the wounded when supplies run low. Stories from the region show the real cost of war. Parents try to shield their children from danger. Young people wonder if they can finish school or find a job. Some families are separated, not knowing if they will see each other again. Humanitarian groups are racing to help, but the need is huge. Food, water, and medicine are often in short supply. Refugee camps are crowded and sometimes unsafe. The war is not just about armies and leaders. It affects every part of daily life. Many people say they just want peace and a chance to rebuild. Their voices are often lost in the noise of politics and conflict, but their hopes remain strong. The future of the Iran conflict is uncertain. Some experts warn that if fighting continues, a wider war could break out. Others hope that pressure from world leaders will bring the sides back to the table for talks. Everyone agrees that dialogue is the only real path to peace. War brings pain and loss, while negotiation offers hope. Countries like China and groups like the United Nations can play a key role by bringing people together. The world is watching and waiting. What happens next will shape not just Iran, but the whole Middle East and beyond. The need for restraint, compromise, and understanding has never been greater. In the end, the story of this conflict is still being written, but if leaders choose dialogue over violence, there's always hope for a better future.